Hi, I'm sure that you must have heard about the new autofocus system in the Lumix S5II and the S5IIX. Or if you own any of these cameras, have you tried the full potential of the new autofocus system? In this video, we're going to talk about the settings that you need to keep or do in your cameras so that you get the best performance of the new autofocus system and get the best results. Welcome to Lumix Lessons. Before we deep dive into the autofocus settings, let's do some basic settings and set up your camera to get the perfect result. To begin with, go to menu and change the exposure settings to M. This will allow you to manually control every little setting from the aperture to the ISO and the shutter, also the white balance. Now change the record format from MP4 to MOV because in the MOV mode you will get more options and you will get more recording formats. Turn on constant preview. Well, constant preview is needed to see what you're shooting and it gives you an immediate result on the viewfinder and your LCD. Now more importantly, change the continuous autofocus mode from mode 1 to mode 2. There are three major subject detection modes in the camera: human, face and eye, animal and human. In face and eye, you can see the camera will track the subject only when they're facing or looking into the camera. The moment they turn, the camera stops tracking them and you could lose the autofocus. Now when I turn the human detect on, you can see that the camera is tracking the subject even when they're not facing the camera. When the subject turns, the camera will now start tracking the body as a whole and maintain the autofocus. Within the different settings of the autofocus, there are a couple of options that you get. One is tracking, second is full area, then you have zone, you have one area plus, and of course one area. For the best result, I would recommend that you have your setting on full area mode. Let's see what each one of them does. So when you don't have the subject detect mode on, the camera goes into a tracking mode. Once you select the subject that you want to track, you will get a tracker on the screen and it will try and maintain autofocus when that subject is moving. This is good when you're shooting moving objects like cars or you're shooting product, but when it comes to human beings, the human detect autofocus system gives you the best results. Now let's turn on human detect and see how that performs in the different modes. The camera will track the subject's movement, whether the subject is moving left to right, moving front to back, or moving in a zigzag motion as well. Since in the full area the whole sensor is working as a palette, it is very easy for the camera to detect the subject and the tracking becomes much easier, much smoother and more precision. In the zone mode, the camera will track your subject only when they enter the zone. The moment they go out of the zone, the camera will lose focus and may move to the background. So make sure whenever you're shooting in the zone mode, keep your subject in the zone. The next mode is one area plus. This is one of my favorites. Why? Because this gives me the ability to track a single subject and I can actually focus on them only. So basically I can move around the box, make sure the box is around the subject's face. The autofocus system will automatically detect the human subject. It will move to the eyes whenever the subject is facing the camera, and whenever they turn around, well, it goes to the human body tracking. The best bit is, if you have multiple people in the frame, you can actually isolate your autofocus system to the subject that you want it to focus on. And of course, if you have people moving from behind the subject or even in front of the subject, the autofocus system will not leave them. If you have more people in the frame who come and form a group, you can again isolate like you see here in this scene. The next mode is the one area mode. Well, this allows you to increase the size of the box and keep the box anywhere in the frame. It works very well like the one area plus, but in this, if anybody else enters the box, the camera might switch focus to the other person as well, depending on their proximity from the camera. But you can always increase or decrease the size of the box, and this works very well with the human detect setting. The tracking mode works best with objects and products. the human detect or the human and animal detect works very well with human subjects. It also works very well when your subject is backlit. So if you're in a situation where you're under the trees or you have a very bright sky in the back, this focus system will not let you down. And my favorite, the autofocus system works brilliantly in low light situations when you have light sources in the back of your subject, and the autofocus will never leave your subject. So depending on the situation that you're in, select the mode and the setting accordingly. The autofocus settings can also be tweaked. Autofocus speed and autofocus sensitivity can be adjusted according to your usage. I recommend to keep the autofocus speed at 3 and sensitivity at 0 for best results, but then again, it is your preference and the results that you want to achieve. Well, now you can also see how good the autofocus system of the Lumix cameras is performing, and this new technology will give you the precision and the speed that you need on the field. So if you're somebody who's just taking up the Lumix S5II or the S5IIX or are already using it, I hope that you get the best results on any of your shoots. So until next time, ciao.
Panasonic.